Better? Cool. All right. Hi, everyone. My name's Meredith. I'm going to be giving my Redbit today on how we meet and why it matters, otherwise known as The Art of Gathering. How many of you all have read the book, The Art of Gathering, How We Meet and Why It Matters by Priya Parker? Michelle, I knew you would be the one. So I read that book. It changed my life. You know, when people are like, I read a book, it changed my life. I read the book, it changed my life. It impacted how I work, how I think about how I work with other people, and how I want to behave in the future. So before I kind of kick things off, I want you all to just take a few seconds and think about all the gatherings that you have been a part of in your life. All of them, every single one. We gather to solve problems we can't do by ourselves. We gather to celebrate, to mourn, to mark transitions, to make decisions. We gather because we need one another, and we show strength by this. Your life is made up of more gatherings than you think. Netflix and chilling is a whole new gathering that was coined within the last couple of years. Baby showers, dinner parties, class reunions, weddings, and then you look on the other side of things and you think about all of the work gatherings, conferences, workshops, syncs, meetings, conventions. They're essentially titles of periods of time in which you're spending working on things that they just either force you to do, you invent, or you invite other people to. But if you think about your 9 to 5, all of you beautiful people here, how much of that time are you in these? How many meetings are you going to? Are you in back-to-back gatherings all day? And then when you think about your 9 to 5, when you think about the 5 to 6 hours that you have when you go home, how many gatherings are you a part of? For most of you, you probably have set plans. You're going to dinner, you're putting your child to sleep, you have this certain amount of hours that you're doing something. When you look at it on a large scale, every single minute or hour or a couple hours of your day is marked by gatherings. And when you really think about all of the things that you're a part of, and I just asked you a couple moments ago, think about all the gatherings, what came to your mind? Was it your wedding, the birth of your child, graduating college? What happens, or what would happen, if you were a part of so many impactful gatherings that you couldn't possibly be able to put all of them into your head? Tim mentioned all of them. What if every single gathering you've ever been a part of made an impact on your life? And that kind of brings me to the concept of time. We often hear about we're all aging and getting older and how time is so precious, and you blink and your child is 30 and all of these things. And I can't, slapping a bunch of quotes on a wall is not going to just make it make sense. We all get it. Time is relevant and time is precious. But what happens if we're spending our time in the wrong way? What if we're not using the precious time that we have to the best of your ability? And that kind of brings me to the art of gathering. I think we have been doing it wrong, and I think we can do it better. So I'm going to tell you about the big 3. I probably could have done 50 Redbits on the art of gathering. There are so many details, and there are so much that's ingrained on the meetings and the gatherings of our life, but I want to give you all 3 things to make your everyday meetings and gathering better that you can take action and do right now. So first, you have to decide why you're gathering. If you're the meeting owner, if you're booking the meeting, if you're hosting the party, if you are the owner of the meeting, you have to commit to a bold, sharp purpose. Just a small disclaimer, a category is not a purpose. You have to have a bold, sharp purpose. Why does this meeting exist? Why are you hosting this party? Why are you going to the conference? Why is the conference being hosted? And then you have to be specific about it. Vagueness creates chaos. Vagueness creates chaos. It makes people uncomfortable when they do not know what is happening. So if you're the owner or the host or the main gatherer, tell people what you want them to do. If you're inviting them to your meeting, what they're reporting on, what the point is of the meeting. If you just simply want them to exist, tell them that. And then thirdly, your purpose, this very bold, sharp purpose that you're making, it has to be disputable. Yes, disputable. Well, you're like, what? So you're going to create a purpose and then you want people to argue it? Kind of yes and no. When you make a purpose disputable, think about Red Pepper's missions, for instance. We essentially have this internet war room where we're building on our vision. People are adding to it. People are molding it. We're shaping it. That is giving everyone in Red Pepper a voice. And when you have a voice, whether you're adding to it or arguing with it or saying, hey, let's do it this way, you're allowing people to feel like they're included, and in a way you're strengthening the whole thing altogether. So it needs to be disputable. I'll give you a little bit of an example. One of the author's grandmothers, she was turning 80. She lives in Germany, and she wanted all of her grandchildren, who are now adults that live in a multitude of different countries, to come to Germany to celebrate her birthday. And she sent an invitation to them, to her adult grandchildren, and said, come to my birthday party. Your spouses and your children are not invited. Now this, you can imagine, was probably, it is a very disputable purpose. And this, she'd never done it before. You can understand why it was probably pretty cringeworthy if you're the spouse, your spouse, you're like, so I'm going to my grandmother's 80th birthday party in Germany. You can't come in, you gotta watch the kids. They're probably thinking like, what the hell? But it was the grandmother's gathering. She didn't know if she was gonna have another birthday. It was the first time she hosted it. She wanted the people there that she wanted to be there, and it was her decision to make. Here are some examples of this disputable purpose, or maybe how to build out your purpose. These are just some things. Obviously, a company offsite, taking Pepperpalooza, for example, would be an example of that, but I'll just go over birthday party. Obviously, we all have birthdays. They come around every year. Some people love them, some people don't. Your purpose as a category would be you're just celebrating your birthday. Diving in, being a little bit basic, but having a boring purpose would be to mark the year. If you're going further, the one that I'm hopefully driving you to make would be to set this, to have a group that keeps us doing what we say we want to do. That's who I want to have at my birthday party. Or to have a trust circle to share struggles without worrying about appearances. That's why I'm having my birthday party this year. And like the grandmother, the second of the big three is you have to be willing to exclude people. The whole concept of the more the merrier is actually kind of a myth. And obviously saying this, I feel like kind of an asshole. You have to be willing to not invite people. And in a work setting, especially, it can be a little bit uncomfortable. Like, I feel like X should come to this meeting. Y needs to come to this meeting. You worry if we don't invite everyone, then we're excluding them. You are. Not everyone needs to be at the meeting. And sometimes when you think about that, it's like, well, exclusion will always feel like the impolite thing to do. And we have this connotation that, yeah, it kind of is, but inclusion of the wrong people is also a form of impoliteness to the people that are really supposed to be meant at the meeting. And it doesn't mean necessarily a lack of diversity. Some people avoid an exclusive approach to gatherings because they don't want to narrow the group to the point of reducing its diversity. But sometimes coming up with a tight invitation list might be the best way to bring together an interesting group of people. So this was one of my favorite components of the book. When you're forming a meeting or you're having a gathering, these are the 3 questions that you need to ask. Who not only fits but helps fulfill the gathering's purpose? Who threatens the purpose? And who, despite being irrelevant to the purpose, do you feel obligated to invite, which is probably where most of client services lives, having to invite irrelevant people to the meeting even if they're not going to move the ball forward. And this kind of looks at when you break, obviously there's thousands of amounts of groups. You can meet in groups of 8, you can meet in groups of 10, but this kind of gives you all on a smaller spectrum, and I'm going to focus specifically on groups of 12 to 15 because this is what they call the sweet spot. Groups 12 to 15 are small enough to build trust and intimacy, small enough for a single moderator, formal or informal, to handle. They say if you get more, then you might consider having 2, which I thought was really interesting. And then large groups offer enough diversity of opinion and large enough that it allows for a certain quotient of mystery and intrigue of constructive unfamiliarity. What a sexy sentence that was. But it's known as the table moment. King Arthur's famous table had 12 seats. Jesus had 12 apostles. The presidential cabinet, which expands as the new departments are born, consists of 15 secretaries and a vice president. Just thought that was interesting. And third, you have to set explicit rules. Rules have a bad reputation. I think school kind of ingrained that all into our memories, but rules in this case are liberating. If you let them, they can be gateways for experimentation, playfulness, and a hell of a lot more meaning. They take us out of everyday methods, and especially in a technology-dominated society, this is so important. So I suggest to you all, maybe for your next meeting, don't allow any tech. That includes a phone, a smartwatch, a computer. Leave it outside, and any materials you may need, you need to print and have in the room provided. Just try and see what you think. These are two examples of how that could live in a dinner party or a workshop. When you give rules, you're giving the people that are attending your gathering a temporary alternate universe. When we get older and we become greater in work environments, we don't have as many rules other than like don't kill someone and be a good human being. But when you have rules inside work, they can kind of create this different world in which we live in, and it actually makes people a bit more creative and a bit more excited to do what they're there to do. And lastly, after you have the big three, you all need to evaluate you, which is probably the hardest part, but the best part. We are really lucky that we work at Red Pepper. I don't know, we say that all the time. This space is built for the things that we do, and I'm so thankful that it kind of makes my job a hell of a lot easier. The book talked about how it's so important for meetings. Every single thing matters. The table placement, how close they are to the restroom, how often they have a break, where they're seating in the meeting, who they're sitting next to, what materials they have on the table, what's the proximity of the meeting owner's space towards the door. You would think, like, what? No, all of it matters and is impactful, and it's kind of nice because here we actually meet a lot of the guidelines that it suggests to have in a better meeting because of the way that the space is set up. But you have to realize things are going to matter only if you make them matter. So if you're paying attention and you're trying to be more tactful about it, you're going to have a better meeting. The gathering begins at the moment of invitation, not when your guests walk out the door. I think this is one of the most important parts. Being a chill host often fails guests rather than serves them. Generous authority is about protecting, connecting, and equalizing your guests, and you have to keep the best version of you somewhere else. I know we all need to be client-facing, but it's so important to show up as your true, authentic, vulnerable, honest self, even if it is hard, because it pushes the work and makes everyone in the room better. And kicking off a meeting and ending the meeting are two of the most crucial and important parts, and they're the most memorable. So when you're evaluating yourself and thinking about gathering begins at the moment of invitation, a host's job is a big one and all one that we owe. And take action. I want to encourage you all to evaluate what your calendars look like. If you're the owner of a meeting or you're going to a meeting every single week or every single day and you're thinking to yourself, this is a genuine waste of my time. If it doesn't have a purpose, if you feel like there are too many people included and there are not explicit rules, I encourage you not to go. If you don't feel like the meetings that you're having every single day or every single week are pushing you and the work forward, I would encourage you to maybe talk to somebody about how you all could change that. Doesn't mean you don't need the meeting, but maybe you just change the meeting. So I'm going to end with read this book, remember these tools, and change your life. And that's all I've got for you guys today. Thanks so much.